Okay, so we're going to do this little watercolor study, and I'm going to think out loud somewhat as I do it. I might talk in sections and then not talk in other sections. And again, I just want my disclaimer is, and I just want to reiterate, I am not a watercolorist. These studies I do, kind of like I explained in another video, as more supplementary to my oil painting, as just more exercise work, as something that I can do when I can't bring my oil paint somewhere, just to get some colors, or for the purpose of doing studies. So that's how I enjoy them. And so please, you may see me doing some things that are not the purest watercolor way of doing things, because I am not a watercolorist. So I'm just going to show you what I do and what I enjoy. So off we go. As I mentioned in the other video, I do like this product, the Molotov Art Masking Liquid Pump Marker. And as you can see, I just made a few marks just so I kind of have my bearings and I know where I am. And now what I'm going to do in the very beginning is just mark off and mask out anything that should stay white of the paper, because I personally don't use white when I want white. Now I do have a little bit of white on my watercolor palette here, simply for the purpose of helping to make some of the colors look a little bit more pastel. I don't always do that, but as you can see from the reference, this painting does have a lot of pastels. And so that's why I do have it, just to add a teeny bit to get a little more of that pastel color that I want. I always recommend having a scratch paper where you can kind of mix some paints and test them, like a little tester, off to the side. That's really a good thing to do, I think. And I love my little mister. I can mist down my watercolor paints in there, since I have the kind that are dry and in the pot, the little pots there. And yeah, you have a little, little container for your water. Got my little container that fits in my bag that I can, add to it. Again, this is 6x8, as mentioned in another video. And we'll just get going using the marker. Okay, so I think it's really a great tool. It works really well, just kind of mask things off. And then at the end, you erase them out. Super fun. So I'm just looking for anything that is white. A little sharper point on that. There we go. Okay, I'm going to mask outside of this gable here. This has light shining on it. A teeny bit on the front of this one. Okay, there's some in this little building here. Looking around here. I use it, it's really nice as a way to draw too, a little bit. Have a little bit more knowledge of what you're doing. Some things marked out. And then then it does all kind of erase at the end. And even if it's somewhere like, this isn't, what I'm gonna mark now isn't quite white, but it's very, very light. And so you can erase it later and then tint it, you know, whatever really light color you needed after that. Just looking around here, don't want to miss anything. Maybe just a little hint in here. Got that. And then there's this wall down here. Just kind of landmarking here. There's some stuff over here, but I don't think I'll put that in over there. Okay, I think that pretty much does it. Yeah. Okay. Put this away, put the lid on so it won't dry out. All right, well, I do like to do some of the darkest darks first. But I think before I do that, actually, I'm gonna do sky, since we do have some sky. I think I will do that. Make sure that my brush is somewhat clean. Got a stack of paper towels on the right, small stack, so I can kind of clean brushes off. Okay. So I have kind of a really light turquoise color. And then I have a violet that I really like. I do like having a violet in my palette. Seems like this brush has soap in it or something. I don't know if that's quite behaving right. Maybe? I don't know. Almost seems like soap suds. I'm trying another over here. Weird. Well, maybe it's okay. I don't know. And I guess paints just kind of get mixed sometimes because trying to get them out. Then I'm gonna grab a little bit of that teeniest bit of the white. Let's try it over here. Maybe add a little more water to it and see. Yeah, it's somewhat close. Okay. little dark, so I'll add some more water. Sometimes I'll kind of, if it's a little dark, kind of pick some of it up just a little bit. There's some pretty texture that I like too. And then as the sky gets lower, it's pretty normal. We should see a little bit more change towards turquoise. Grab a teeny bit of the white. Okay. I know to an extent we need to let watercolor do its thing, but as an oil painter, sometimes that's kind of difficult. We're used to having more control, you know? But sometimes we just have to let watercolor kind of do its thing. That's so pretty. Okay, I think I'll leave that pretty much for now. Maybe pick up a teeny bit more there so it's a little lighter. Well, maybe I'll put a tiny bit more in here. Again, I like this block because at this point there's a lot of water in there in the paper, and I can see that it wants to buckle, but it will only be able to buckle and warp so much because it is stuck to the block, both on the top and the bottom. All right, then I like to get right into dark darks. And for that, I'm gonna reach for some brown, kind of a brownish here, and then looks very orange, probably because I grabbed some with my orange brush that had orange on it before. And then I'm gonna kind of neutralize it with a Payne's gray. Grab a little more brown. Okay, pretty happy with that. All right, so I want to establish the trunk, just so I know where that's going to occur. A little bit more Payne's gray for this really dark right here. And then at the same time, I want to, let the watercolor do its thing and mix for me a little bit too. So I'm going to kind of touch it where I want it to soften a bit. Maybe we'll extend that trunk up a little bit. That one a little high, I guess. Watercolor is not as forgiving as oil paint. That's okay. You can also give the painting a little spray. If you want it to really get soft, that's really fun. So I highly recommend the mister for many purposes. While I'm at it, right near this roof line down here, I'm just going to put in a little bit of that dark, and I can see there's some purple in that. How fun. More purple, right? That's what we always want. There's even some purple up in here, dark purples. I like a flat brush too, have a little bit more control that way. And at any point, we can soften some things with that mister too. I might do some more of that at some point. I really like what that did. That's very nice. I'm afraid to spritz it again because it might get a little too wet, but I do want to take a little bit of water. If I can get a brush, cleaner brush, where I can do that. And right in here, while it's still somewhat wet, just touch it a little bit. Let that kind of soften and do its thing. There. And there's some brownish, really pretty, like brownish things happening in here. They're a little warmer, almost rosy. I'm going to be really careful getting up close to that dark there, because if it grabs it, you know, it's going to kind of violate that edge a little bit. So, okay, and then there's a tree here. I kind of put down some water, kind of like tinted water in here with what I see Schmid had kind of done in the skies, or in the, not the skies, the sky, singular. Painting and talking is not as easy as it might seem. This is higher than the chimney, that really dark spot, so I'm gonna kind of come up with that dark a little higher. Okay. kind of nice the way a watercolor setup is so much smaller. And of course my painting's so small that you can kind of see almost everything here that I'm doing. It's not always that easy. See a little bit of like almost a purple burgundy in there. Grab some more water. There's kind of a slant here. There's a hill going this way. That's kind of indicated here. This slant. I can probably strengthen that more later, but there that is for now. Just kind of put in that really pretty dusty warm color there. It's almost like a dusty mauve. Back to this tree a little bit. While the sky is still a little bit wet. Kind of watching where I'm at here. So I kind of slowed down looking at the structure of that gable there. I'm going to switch. That roof's a little darker. Not quite that dark. I'm going to take some of that out, and I want to get a little bit more red. I think I've got a darker red right here. Try try it out. Yeah, it is. So we'll see what that does in here. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Back to a little bit more pastel up here. Dip in a little of that white. Put some more white right here. I think this started turning not a great color because the dark color spilled over into it. There we go. Okay, let's see how this looks. Okay, now I want to kind of establish the chimney color somewhat. I'm gonna try that and see what happens if I kind of take it back out. Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to see. Then there's this little house down here. Some purple next to it. Purplish. I need a little more water. gonna spray some water here. Yeah, that's what we want to see. See how that's kind of pushing it? Whoop. I'll tip it that way. You can also tip. Let it run wherever you want it. Don't really want it in the sky, but you can see in the painting how it's just kind of a real, kind of a, oh, well, how would you call it? Like a nuanced kind of like a lot of stuff happening, but very subtly described, right? So I'm gonna see if I can kind of get that look with watercolor a little bit. I think it's time to get some yellow ochre happening up in here. Might even dip in something that's a little bit more yellow. Again, I think I'm going to spray the water. Where'd it go? Oh, I'm holding it. There we go. Yes, that's what I wanted. Yeah, thank you. Water just did it for me. Perfect. That's kind of what you have to do in watercolor right here, is really kind of let it do its thing a little bit. I'm gonna lighten that just a bit, so I grabbed a little white. Okay. Looking around for somewhere else I can put a little bit of yellow, since I have it on the brush.